Another important video for anybody going through my notes. So these videos are more like an open diary, and then I can go back and later use like a voice changer or something, read it back and try to put them in order. But that's not going to be possible anymore. So now I'm just using it as an open diary, and hopefully one day I get to pull it back into a book again, but that does not seem like the case. So in a lot of these videos, I see him very upset, or maybe people go, "Oh, he's unstable." No, I'm very stable. I'm able to work with the old man with a lot of problems who's hurt me before. I'm able to do work and have my wages stolen and get them back. I'm able to do a lot of stuff that most people can't do while bleeding internally, while falling on the side of the road, having people run over my hair. While I get taken out in an ambulance or I go to the emergency room with black urine, they mistreat me, and then I go back to work bent over, not able to stand up properly. I'm shaking all over the place. I'm able to do that and stay very mentally clear. Um, my problem with mental capacity does not come to anything except for if I don't have a place to live. If you force me to be in the cold for 24 hours a day, having seizure after seizure after seizure, shaking, can't walk, can't talk, can't walk, can't talk, seizure, can't walk, can't talk, seizure, can't walk, I get scared. My mental health breaks down, and that's when these things I'm talking about come into play. Like I would go nuts. I would probably blow my own brains out. I'd become suicidal. I'd be suicidal. I can't live that way. I can't live that way. I would do this and I might do that, and I don't know what to do. And if you ever hear those statements, I'm talking about once when they have me live in the woods again. I have a disability that isn't being treated, but also prevents me from getting services like using a shelter. So it becomes very difficult, and my body gets permanently damaged for life. These choices that other people are making are damaging my body for life. I'm going to be like never able to write my own name again because of these people's choices. And it's not like I didn't go down, and there are things that could have been done. It's just a lot of these agencies are doing the opposite of what they should be. Like if they're trying to apply for housing and help me with it, they send the letter to the wrong place or the letter disappears. Meanwhile, I know that disabled people can get assistance and you can help me by filling out the paperwork for me. I've brought disabled people there before and seen this. They just choose to try to run me through the mill because I'm a caregiver, but they want to screw with me. Now, I've told them I'm a very specific type of caregiver. I don't write for anybody. I don't write for anybody, and my reading, I can only parrot. I can't understand some of this complex stuff, but I can parrot it out, and I also am good at bringing other people in to give assistance. I also keep everything like filing cabinets. I show people many skills so they can keep it going for themselves. I'm a very specific type of caregiver. I have a high tolerance for bullshit. Like no other caregiver would let their patient, or not let them, would have a seizure, have the guy try to have sex with them, and then still be able to go back into the household. But I have no other choices. The state and the emergency room did not handle the situation properly. So now I'm forced to live with somebody who literally tried to have sex with me after this, after my seizure. And this is a failure of the doctors at Frisbee Hospital and a failure of the Department of Health and Human Services of Rochester. They got the reports. They know what was going on. I'm just a very, very kind-hearted man who literally has been systematically abused, or everybody got a hook into me. They love getting their hooks into me and taking as much as they can. I was working for like disabled, bleeding out all over the place during COVID. And when I caught COVID, they forced me to go to work. I couldn't even go on any program whatsoever. When I tried to call, because I didn't have a car, they refused to do anything with us. And the doctors wouldn't give me paperwork excusing me from work either. They only gave me a day. I'm not kidding. All because the COVID test was negative, but I had all the flu symptoms for over a week. Oh my God, I was puking, my runny nose, I had a fever, my whole body was just terrible. I cold, and this was not, there was no drugs involved whatsoever. Now, after a year of this, I ended up having multiple infections in my mouth. So I catch COVID. I'm falling down on the side of the road bleeding. I'm working 50, 60 hours only collecting $1,400 a month. And on top of this, this is at the height of COVID. There's no buses, no taxis, nothing. Everything shut down. But I'm an essential worker, so they keep me going. They keep a disabled man. I'm not even kidding. People saw me crying at work in pain, especially when the infections in my mouth started slamming me to the ground even more. Oh boy. I mean, the cars almost popped my head like a blueberry. This is fucked up shit. And the doctors, the emergency rooms, the Department of Health and Human Services literally thought it was okay to try to keep me going for another 3 years in this condition. And they discriminate against me constantly. They look at me like I'm some crazy person. No, I mean, I was a frickin' teacher's aide. I've been there. You think this is the first time I've helped somebody like David? But I have constant PTSD. I mean, my landlord is literally threatening me over cans 3 years ago. You got David losing his mind next to me. They're putting me through the spins, too. I'm not kidding. The Department of Health and Human Services and doctors are filing stuff away on purpose to try to fuck things up. I'm not even kidding. So this is really affecting me in a big way. I'll give you an example. I applied for cash benefits with them. They were supposed to be helping me with it. I got a phone call from the cash benefits people who told me my worker through the Department of Health and Human Services filed the paperwork at the wrong time incorrectly, and I would have to wait like another couple months to file again. So we wait a couple months, and there was another mistake and another mistake. There's nothing I can do about this. On top of this, the mail. We had a problem with the mail at my address. It keeps on going to other apartments. So they said I could get the mail sent to the Department of Health and Human Services. Now I got a phone call that a piece of mail was delivered that was time sensitive. I only had 5 days to fill it out. And it was already at Department of Health and Human Services. And I was injured and hurt. But I went down. I told them I don't have any ride. Is it there? They couldn't tell me. They gave me the runaround. They gave me the spins. So I took the bus and I crawled and hurt myself. I shook in the waiting room. I put on as many jackets as I could, and they said it wasn't there. So I go all the way back home and I call these people and say, it's not there. Then they say, yes, it is. They're just lying to you. So I go all the way back, ask them, where is it? No, it's not here. Then I go all the way back home. I call them. They're lying to you. We're telling you it's there. So then I go all the way back down to the Department of Health and Human Services of Rochester. They tell me it's not there. On the fourth time, I finally get the piece of paper because it's after the fifth day. They keep on disappearing it. It's kind of like the trick that Bank of America pulled on me when I was about 18. We were supposed, Bank of America wanted to keep a little extra money. Now, I had an account with them, but it was out of Texas. Now, it comes up in their computer system. I have my name. I told them it was out of Texas. So I show them my ID, and I give them the paycheck. This is when I was a teacher's aide, by the way, for the ECC for special needs children. I was able to go on the books because I volunteered, and there was a bunch of special school programs. Actually, I think the school paid me to do that job, but I'm not sure at the end because there was a payment in the beginning for my actual high school, and then I graduated and I was able to work through a different work to school program and keep that job. So I'm not sure who actually paid me on the books, but I was working at the ECC as a teacher's aide for special needs children. That's where I worked for many, many years until they said I looked too drowsy in the mornings for my medication. They said I looked all fucked up from those medications every morning. So they wanted me to fix that, but I couldn't. Every time I talked to my mother, she said, don't blame the meds. So there wasn't much I could do about the medication because I was still brainwashed and had no idea what was going on. Which ones did I need? Which ones were my mother fucking with my body with? Which ones were my mother just lying to get? I have no idea. I have no idea about this, but apparently my family did. Apparently my family knew all about this. My mother was just brainwashing. My father just let it happen, and the rest of the family didn't know how severe the rabbit hole went. Anyway, so I tried to cash this check, and they took like $12 fee or some ridiculous fee. And they said that if I had an account, I didn't have to pay for that fee. I said, I do. Gave him my name, told him it's out of Texas, gave him my name, told him it's out of Texas. I did this for 3 paychecks. They ended up taking a little more than 20 something dollars. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was quite a bit. 26, I want to remember the total was from the 3 paychecks that they took. So I eventually got the account number in Texas. I wrote it down, and my father gave that to me. I had a call though because I was in a program, so it took me a couple days to really get this from my father, and it was very difficult because I'm living in a program, and getting any information from my father was like pulling nails. Same thing with my mother. Even asking a medical question was like pulling nails, or I just got lied to. There was a bunch of lying going around too. But anyways, so did they refund me the money when they found my account? Nope. They just wanted my money. They said, you're Zachary Newell, right? I go, yeah. Yeah, we do have an account in Texas. Okay, that's what I told you. Well, we won't charge you today. But how about the last 3 times? Well, no, we can't refund that. What do you mean you can't refund that? I had an account and you took my money and you weren't supposed to. Well, I'm not in charge of that. They gave me a bunch of spin answers. Some I don't want to take responsibility for my actions because I would have to go to my superiors to refund that money. So instead, because you're like an 18-year-old kid, living in Lawrence, we're not going to refund that money. That's where I was living at the time, was in a program in Lawrence, and I was working at a job. But there was one big problem. My father was collecting Social Security without telling me, and the program requires that Social Security to be given to the program, but the program had no idea either. He was lying to them, he was lying to me, and I ended up getting thrown out in the end because of these lies. Because you gotta hand over the Social Security. That's part of the program's deal. This isn't like a normal program like I was in before. This isn't the orphanage state program. This is something a little better. Anyways, so I never got that money back. Bank of America pulled a bunch of bullshit. They took my money, and then when they got caught making a mistake, instead of owning it and refunding my money, the kid just gave me the spins and sent me off. Well, this is what the Department of Health and Human Services is. They're giving me the spins and then sending me away. And then I come back, they give me the spins, and they send me away. And then I come back and they give me the spins and they send me away. And then I die because I didn't get any services that I needed. I need my Social Security to stay alive. I cannot keep on injuring myself for pocket change. Nobody else does that. I cannot keep on crawling across traffic to go get CT scans because I did something like work like I'm not supposed to. People in my condition don't work, but they also don't go and get spins from people. Because this is ridiculous. I mean, I got notes that say I'm excused from gym class that are supposed to be do not lift orders. I got workers filing paperwork incorrectly, pushing things out 6 months. You got all these different little mistakes. You got people in Rochester sending my attorneys only 1 copy of the paper and taking a whole week to send the rest of the copies of the paper. Then my whole lawyer has nothing to do for 7 days because he hasn't been given the paperwork he needs yet. So there's so much shit going on that most likely their plan is to kill me. I'm not even kidding, and that scares me. This is where I go nuts. I'm living in the woods because first I'll go to a shelter and they'll throw me out for some stupid reason. Like they'll call it in the books like I didn't get out of bed or something, when really I have a medical issue that needs to be treated. Or I fell in the shower. They'll say I was fucking around in the shower instead. I bet they say I was messing around in the shower, when really I'm on the ground and need an ambulance, and they do call an ambulance. But then I recover when I warm up. So once when I warm up and get dressed and start recovering a little and I'm only shaky, then they just don't know to make heads or tails of this. They tell me to go see a neurologist, but I can't because now I have to move into the woods. So I go into the woods and I have another seizure. So they, if I'm lucky, they save my life again, but they don't know to make heads or tails. And if I go drink alcohol to try to stop the seizures, then they blame it all on alcohol. So I can't drink or do any drugs ever again. So this time I have to let it kill me. This time I have to die. I have to go into the woods after the shelter throws me off and I have to die I don't want to die, but that's what's going to happen. And because society wanted to kill me, I'm not even kidding, nothing from my choices. I want to go to work, collect Social Security, pay my rent, open a support group, and continue helping the elderly and the disabled. That's what I want to do, on top of following Jesus. I also want to move to North or South Carolina. They have a lot more churches and a lot more good people down there. Up here, it seems like there's a lot of selfish people, a lot of people on meth. You got a lot of people that don't listen very well, and they don't have any compassion. They're okay with killing me, and that's. I mean, I literally I've told them what's going on, and they just chalk it all up to lies and bullshit, and then get me hurt. I mean, I got scars on my body that are there because of my doctor and Department of Health and Human Services. If it was up to me, I would have stayed home and waited for a wheelchair or transportation to get to the hospital. But instead, they're having me crawl across traffic to get CT scans. So I got scars on my knees that are responsible because of the Department of Health. I got PTSD now, or I have anxiety on the bus because of my doctors and the Department of Health and Human Services having me crawl on the bus when my legs don't work and people are taking cameras out and they're laughing at me. Do you know how embarrassing it is to be in public and not have your legs work properly? And the doctors are doing nothing, and they're telling you they're not going to do anything unless you crawl around town. Same thing with Department of Health and Human Services. I had to squat and crawl and squat and crawl and walk and fall and squat and crawl and do all that to get there. They told me if I didn't get there, they weren't going to help me. This is the type of behaviors I'm talking about from them that is really affecting my mental health. Now, I am fine in the warmth if they could just do their jobs and keep it simple. I need to file for cash benefits. Which worker is helping me where? Where do you want me to go? Don't tell me 5 different places. Don't give me the spins. Where do I go to keep my apartment because I'm injured? Where do I go to file this paperwork? Where is my Social Security paperwork? I already started the file. What happened? Where is it? Who's working with me? These are the questions, but now I have the spins because the woman who was working with me, Beth, in department, now dropped my case and isn't answering. My other worker keeps on having me transfer the phone to David. I have all these games being played. My doctor seems to not even know that they have a pulmonary department at Wentworth Douglas for the last year. I've asked her, where can I be referred to get this mold looked into, and she didn't mention the pulmonary or any department about the lungs in Wentworth. She hasn't helped me in one bit with the lung issue. The seizures and the neurology, thank God I got the Triliptal from them, but that all my meds are going to be stopped soon. As soon as I lose my apartment and have to live in the woods, all my medications get stopped. And I also lose my mind. I can't live at 0 degrees with a seizure disorder that's affected by 50 degrees or below. There's no way I can keep my mental capacity. My legs and arms are going to stop working, and I'm not going to be able to speak. So it's not like I can walk in and ask for help at that point either. I'll sound like a mess. Or I can try to force the speech, and then it sounds like I'm angry, even though all I'm really doing is trying to force the speech out, and if I'm lucky, it comes out angry. That's if I'm lucky in the cold and in the woods. So with all this going on, just keep that in mind. I'm stable. I'm able to help David right now. I'm able to talk to professionals. And if I got the help and stayed indoors, I could probably continue staying, and doing all this great stuff. But if I have to transfer into the woods again for 4 years before I get another apartment, there's no way I'll survive it. Not only that, my mental health will break. They've already started to break me. The doctors and all of them, they've already started to break me. And I think it's because they're feeding into my mother's mental illness, because usually this is how this works. If a doctor decides to feed into my passed away mother's mental illness, and that's what killed her too, is drugs and alcohol. But if they feed into her mental illness in 15 years of lives, I always get hurt. Always. Every time. If they go with her bullshit and they don't listen to the patient, I always end up getting hurt. More than if I didn't even go to the doctor. So all I ask is for referrals and paperwork too. I'm not asking for any pills. I just need referrals and paperwork. Where do I go? and I need paperwork describing my injuries. That's it. But in the whole year, I've got nothing but spins from these people and letters that say I'm excused from gym class and just oh, go back in 30 days to work. Oh, you fell and you had a seizure. That's all right. Just go back to work in 30 days. Here's a sick note. Here's a sick note. Here's a sick note. What the hell are you giving a guy in my condition sick notes for? This is nuts. This is completely nuts what these doctors are doing. I've never seen anybody act this nuts to their patient. And I've worked with a lot of very sick people. I've worked with David, I've worked with Raymond, I've worked with Joanna, I've worked with Chris, I've worked with other David who was skinny, and they all were on heavy medications and had heavy disabilities. I have never seen anybody crawl around town and still not collect or even be asked to do that. I mean, you would get a wheelchair or a crutch or something, and I can't use crutches because it's a GI thing. So I have to use like canes or a wheelchair. But there's no way. There's not even talk of one. And honestly, I don't want one. I just need one at times, but I'm not sure if I have the mental capacity to use one at this point. Because of what my mother did to me and all the lies and all the bullshit that my doctor is doing now, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable enough to even use one. So yes, I need one, but I don't know if I could even get the guts to use one. Because literally my doctor has treated this just like a crazy mental illness thanks to my mother or because of her lack of ability to listen. I'm not sure what reason. But with 15 years of bullshit, it does, it makes perfect sense. But at least everybody knows it's real. At least like people like my roommate, my boss, the people I work with, my friends that I grew up with. There's anybody who saw me during winter in the cold or at any time of my childhood should know this is real. I mean, there was many times where I had shitty coordination issues, where I dropped things or I fell off of things or I couldn't aim with things or I was watching things and fell to the ground or I had scars all over my knees or I bumped into things. I mean, just all the time. All the time. I mean, I don't know how many watches I broke because of my shakes too. Because when I'm walking into a doorway, my arms shake so much that the watches always hit the doorknobs, either in or out. I'm always, doesn't matter if I put it on my right arm or left arm. The screens always break from the shakes. Oh, drives me nuts. I drop phones. I've gone through so many phones because I can't feel them in my hand, and I'm shaking with them. So it's like a lose-lose. And this has been going on for my whole life. Different severities depending on the stimulus. If I'm cold, oh boy, does it get turned up. Anything below 50 and boom. Even as a child, anybody who grew up with me knows I always complained, I always shook, and I always couldn't move. I would stay seated. I would say, I want to go home. I want to go in the car. I want to sit down. I want to sit down. They would hear me say that constantly. Not only this, doctors in Westford, before I was trafficked around the country, were starting to catch on about this. So there are reports of coordination issues, physical therapy, speech therapy, an overdose that was called a mysterious allergy attack. There's a full bottle of Epicac causing damage to my throat and esophagus and stomach. So there's a lot of stuff. There's food poisoning in New Mexico that was reported. There's so much stuff. And then they just wanted to forget about all of it. All of it, just forget about it. Don't listen to me. Listen to my crazy ass mother and get me hurt, right? And that's what they're still doing. I mean, Jesus, every time I go into the hospital, like I was helping David, my roommate, and all I do is I advocate. He tells me what he's trying to do because he gets confused on the phone when they try to spin his brain up. So that he gives the phone for me and just says, I want to know my doctor's name and I want to know their phone number and when I'm supposed to go. I say, okay, David, but you're going to have to tell him that you want him to speak to me. So he goes on the phone with Wentworth Douglas. First, he talks to his doctor. Everything goes great. He says, everything goes fine. But when we get to Wentworth Douglas Hospital, David speaks to them and says, I don't know. You're confusing me. I want you to speak to my advocate, David. I want you to speak to my advocate, Zach. He knows what I'm trying to say. Yes, he knows what I'm trying to say. So anyways, he gives the phone to me, and I say, yes, I'm just trying to help David here, and my name's Zachary, and before I can even get a word out, she's jumping down my throat. The lady goes, what business do you run? Where are you from? What gives you the right to talk on his behalf? I'm like, ma'am, I'm just trying to get information for him. I'm just advocating with him because of the speech problem. I have a speech problem too. So please don't do this to me. Don't do this to him. And I finally get the name. But then I give the phone back to David because I feel uncomfortable now. This woman is literally jumping down my throat, acting like I have to be something special to help somebody. And she's literally just being so inappropriate. She's bringing my anxiety out. So I'm like, no, David, you're going to have to handle this phone call. Well, he's trying to get a biopsy because his doctor said that there was a biopsy scheduled, but they confused him the weeks before to cancel it. They keep on giving David the spins, and then he just yups them. If you spin up David's head, then he just knows to say, yup, okay, yes, okay. And then he has no clue what he agreed to. He does this all the time. If he loses track of what you're saying, then David will just go, yes, okay, yep. And then I'll say, David, what did you just agree to? I don't know. You just canceled all your appointments. I did? No, I didn't. Yes, David, you canceled all your appointments just now. Is that what you wanted to do? And he goes, no. And I said, now you got to call them back then. And he goes, no. And then he misses them and waits 6 months. Then he calls his doctor. His doctor scheduled an appointment with Wentworth Douglas. Then Wentworth Douglas gets the appointment. David has it on the calendar to go. Wentworth Douglas calls David 6 times. I answer. I'm just like, damn secretary. No, he's not here yet. No, he's not here yet. No, he's not here yet. David gets here. I give the phone to David. David wants the appointment, but they start confusing him with a test. Well, we got a biopsy, and we got this test. We got a CT scan here, and we got this. And then they just give him a bunch of different names that confuses him. Do you want to keep this one or this one? Or do you want to move this one over here? And David's like, yes, okay, yep. And then before he knows it, he has a bunch of stuff moved back to Massachusetts where he can't get to, and he has no money to get to. But it's just a total mess. Or they say they can't do the biopsy because they want further testing, so then they just do 3 more tests. They say, okay, we need this from you, then we need this from you. And before you know it, he's out of the apartment, dying, dead, before he can ever get the paperwork he needs to go after the landlord in civil court. So all of this is completely bogus. It's giving us definite anxiety, heart palpitations. It's even harder to do the stuff we need to do because now we're all confused too. So if they could just keep it simple and be like, I'm trying to help David here. Can you please stop jumping down my throat because you're stressing me out? And they don't listen either. And this is the problem with Wentworth Douglas, Frisbee, the Department of Health and Human Services of Rochester. I've been a lot of places, and I don't have a problem with them. But as soon as they get involved with me and my mother's bullshit, it seems like they start acting very inappropriately. It's almost like they're weaponized as soon as they look up the last 15 years of bullshit that my mother made up. I get 2 different reactions. First, they're great with me. But then when they get my background, my medical history, oh boy, they change. Then I can't do anything to help David. David gets confused. Nothing gets done. And then I get no help either. I can't get a fucking thing done. And then I work and get hurt to pay the bills because these people are messing around, in the corner, playing with themselves. Well, I'm dying over here, begging for help on my hands and knees. Every morning I pray to the Lord. I get on my hands and knees, or I lay in my bed and I pray that one day that these people will listen. Just listen. That's all I pray for, is that they'll listen to what I have to say and believe me, instead of believing a dead woman's fantasy. I say, please, I really need the help. No more games, please. I can't take any more games, please. These games are going to make me homeless, please. These games are going to get me injured, please. No more games from the doctor. No more games at department. Please keep it straight with me. Please keep it straight with me. Please just file the paperwork correctly. Please just file the paperwork correctly. Please don't lose my mail for a week. Please don't disappear my mail for a week. Please don't disappear my mail for a week. Please don't fuck me on the phone and hang up. Please don't hang up at the middle of a phone call and then don't let me get back with you. Please don't play any more games. Please don't cancel appointments after I waited 6 months. Please don't make me wait 4 months and then play more games. Please, 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 I beg the Lord. And then they do it again and again to me, again and again to me, until I'm just bleeding on the side of the road, all bloody. And then I'm home crying because these people are fucking with me so severely. I just don't think I can go into the woods and hold this together. I've been able to hold it together because I follow Jesus and I have a lot of forgiveness in me to these people. But I'm not sure how much more I can take of my mother's fantasy weaponizing people, and then they play games and get me hurt. I just can't, I don't know how much more I can take. I really don't. And that's my diary for today. So keep that in mind. I am stable, but if I'm in the woods, I'm afraid that I'm going to break apart. My mind is going to break into pieces, and I might become something that doesn't follow Jesus anymore. And I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of that. So I mean, and that's when I get suicidal too, because I'm dying. They tell me I died and they brought me back to life, and then I'm like, I don't want to die again tonight. I died yesterday. Oh no, you've been asleep for 2 days. We found you with your body at 74 degrees. We got no pulse, no heartbeat. We had to bring you back. We thought you were dead. Oh, you were pronounced dead, and we had to bring you back. You were frozen on the Riverwalk. Apparently, somebody like hit your head and we just brought you in. I said, oh, I think I hit it on the bench, but I really don't remember much. Okay, where am I going? Oh, you're just going right back out to the cold to live. And don't forget, when I go to the shelter, I get thrown out for my disabilities. There's nothing I can do about that because my real disabilities aren't documented yet. My mother didn't want that. She wanted to protect herself because if my real disabilities ever got out, there's a chance she would have been in trouble. So there's no way she wanted that.